Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast, available on all platforms including YouTube if you prefer to watch. My name is Jeremy Blaine, CEO of Performance Works International, Executive Director of the Transformational Leadership Acceleration Institute, and Managing Partner of Diversity Talent. My aim is to bring insights from leaders, experts, and highly talented professionals from around the world. Insights, stories, and advice from the front lines of modern leadership to engage, inspire, and mobilize progress back in the workplace. Every episode is a learning opportunity for us all. The Rethink Leadership podcast also supports charities around the world. Each episode is in aid of a cause chosen by my guests, and to date, I'm proud to say we've supported over 60 global and local great causes. Today I welcome Gerald J. Leonard, the President and CEO of Turnberry Premier, also the Publishing Editor, Founder and CEO of the Leonard Productivity Intelligence Institute, where he focuses on enhancing productivity and building better workplace cultures. Gerald is also a professional musician and brings his experiences of playing in bands, at events and in concert halls everywhere to the business context, in how leaders and teams can build productivity, engagement, motivation and high performance. His highly anticipated third book, A Symphony of Choices, How Mentorship Taught a Manager Decision-Making, Project Management and Workplace Engagement and Saved a Concert Season, is out now. We're proud to make this episode in aid of Dream Builders for Equity, Gerald's charity of choice, an organisation that envisages a world in which all communities have the courage to dream, have the skills to build, and the resources to own their own future. Thank you very much for joining me, Gerald. Please introduce yourself, your business, and something about yourself that not many people know.
Jeremy, how are you? I am really excited to be here. And, I got started, as you probably can see from my background, a couple of instruments behind me, as a musician from the age of 10. And in fact, that little red guitar was a guitar I stole from my sister, and and she let me play it. And it really just taught me so much about life and music and business, just the lessons I learned as a kid playing music. I joined a band with some friends, and one was an amazing guitar player, and I realized that I wasn't going to be the guitar player, so I switched and became a bass player. And that was an amazing journey because I did my bachelor's and master's in music. I actually studied through the Manhattan School of Music with a gentleman at Juilliard for a year and playing professionally in New York. Then I did some ministry work, and then I wanted to go back into music, but so I started doing IT work. Some technology work, and I already had my master's, so I got certified in things. And for a long period of time, over 20 plus years, I have been a musician on one hand and a business consultant on the other hand. And in doing that, I started seeing things that were really interesting, where I would go to a rehearsal or a show, and you're meeting people for the first time, you're rehearsing, you're connecting, and by second or third rehearsal, you're best friends and you're all emotionally connected. And I started finding that really good project teams, where people were experts at what they did, but were coming to the project thinking, how can we make this better and work as a team? It became more like playing in a band. It became more like we're all working together. And so that really put me on a path of kind of like taking that in and learning from it. And I started doing a lot of speaking, and I wanted to write a book. And my first book ended up being a book called Culture is the Bass. It was around that time the song All About That Bass came out. And because I saw business culture as something that had a vibe and a feel. And it's kind of like, a nice bass line in your favorite song. And so from that point, I've kind of got on this journey of writing books that have music as a metaphor, but really teach the core concepts of business, culture, high-performing teams, executive decision-making, workplace engagement, and project management, things along that line. And so that's kind of like a little bit about me and how I got started with the work that I'm doing now.
There's so much to unpack there, and how fascinating too. So, got to ask you the question: what's the genre of music you enjoy the most, Gerald, to
I
play?
would, I would say right now it's jazz. Growing up, I played all kinds. I played R&B and all kinds of pop music, and obviously in college, doing my bachelor's and master's in classical music, I did a lot of classical orchestra music, and so I really love all music. And I was of the mindset that I wanted to be a well-rounded musician because I wanted to make a living at it. And I knew that if I played different types of music, I would always be in demand. Everybody always needs a good bass player who can read music, who can play different styles. And so I always play different styles, and I still listen to different types of music. But I would have to say right now, and for a long time, jazz has been one of my favorite, modern jazz and just straight ahead jazz.
Oh, so great. And it'd be great if you can bring any examples in as we go through this podcast, but it sounds like I may have to get you back on again and just talk music and how that interplays with business and your own career going on. But anyway, let's come to the other discipline. You're an expert in enhancing productivity as well, building high
Yes.
performance cultures, ultimately enabling business success. And I can see where some of this is coming from now, just from what you've been talking about. And it does appear these days that productivity is that kind of magic ingredient for all level growth and success for many organizations, but not many are actually getting it right or know what that actually means. So I would
Exactly.
really like you to define what productivity is and what are the ingredients that make for a truly productive workplace.
Excellent. Well, to me, productivity is when you have a team or individuals working together and they're able to accomplish more and add and create greater value while using fewer resources, working less and using fewer resources. And basically, is the concept that if I'm selecting the right things to do and I'm balancing them, I can actually move the ball in my company, my profits, my business, whether it's sustainability activities of thinking of social and economical and environmental, planetary things that we have to think about nowadays with all of the need for sustainability that's so important. Doing all of that and getting a lot of great value and things done, but at the same time, taking care of themselves mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. Because I think a lot of times, you've heard the myth that people can, well, you have to multitask or you have to do, you have to, just kind of burn the candle at both ends, or, I drink Red Bull, so I'm just going to keep, working really hard. And I have nothing against Red Bull. I don't drink it, but I have nothing against it. But at the end of the day, if you're making a lot of progress and doing a lot of things, and then a week or two or a month or a year later, you're burnt out, your body's breaking down, you're lonely, you're struggling, you're challenged. To me, that's not productivity. And in fact, I have a podcast as well, and it's called Productivity Smarts. I have a website called Productivity Intelligence. And here's something that I learned, and I experienced this myself. When we take on stress and we're being stressed out by life, by work and everything, it all sits somewhere in our bodies. And our bodies take it on. And if we're not processing that out of our bodies, somewhere down the road, it's going to come out. And for me, it came out in 2018. I had a major bout with vertigo. It was 6 weeks before I was to deliver a TEDx talk. In fact, I was able to deliver the talk. And it happened 6 weeks before that, but I was rushed to the hospital. The vertigo wouldn't stop by itself. I spent a day and a half in the hospital, and it wiped out my vestibular system. I literally lost the ability to walk. It was actually a brain injury. And when I look back on it, they couldn't tell me why that happened. And everyone I've talked to, medically and so on, counseling wise, after I went through that process, told me it was probably due to stress. So basically, I was dealing with some stress in my life and so on that had to come out. And it came out through this vertigo situation. Now, here's the interesting part, and here's where music is always like the foundation of my life, besides my idea of my walk with God. And that is, my talk is called "What If Practice is the Performance, the Neuroscience of Music, or Falling in Love with Music." And as I'm laying in bed for a week, I literally can't watch TV, can't do anything. I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to deliver this talk? So I make a goal. And as soon as I could sit up, I grab one of the little basses and I start playing. And every day I played, and every day I started trying to walk. And I literally had to think right foot, left foot to walk again. Within 3 weeks, I walked in my doctor's office unassisted, but very gated. 3 weeks after that, I walked on stage and delivered my talk. I later found out that I had lost 86% capability in my right inner ear. I still have the disability, or I don't call it a disability, I call it a constraint. I still have the constraint of a vestibular imbalance. But playing music activates the brain in such a way that the brain will rewire itself. And so I was able to use music as my therapy to rewire my brain. Since that time, understanding that I have a constraint with my balance and my vestibular, I used to love to go ride my bike outside. I used to love to go play golf. I can't do those things physically anymore the way I used to. So I had to think, okay, well, how do I keep moving things forward in my life with this constraint? I'm certified in the theory of constraints, so I understand how to manipulate and take care of a constraint. In doing that, I realized that I needed to process out any excess stress in my life. So I started doing yoga. I started doing meditation. I started writing out my goals by hand to visualize where I was going with my life. And through that whole process, I went through a divorce. I gave my ex-wife the home, the equity, everything. I literally left with my clothes and books and so on. And within 2 years, 2.5 years of this new process, I rebuilt my life, got remarried, bought a new home, furnished a new home, and have written 2 additional books, and had an investment in my business, and have really moved forward in ways that I could not have done if I hadn't had that situation happen. But by not giving into it and saying, woe was me, but by deciding I'm going to get better, not bitter, and I'm going to grow through this and not just go through it, it radically transformed my life and radically transformed my understanding of productivity. So now my focus is to be productivity smart and to do things that are in a balanced way, but I get so much more done. And I can talk more about that in detail.
Oh, what's interesting is that as you were talking about that, it feels like it's very easy to fall into the habit of not being productive or feeling that you're productive, but running at 1,000 miles per hour and not taking that stock. And it takes its toll on us, on our body, on our mental health and our physical health. And you experience that. And and you either slow down or break down. And you had to break down to realize that and find the way forward. Have I read that right, Gerald?
Yes, you have. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And what was interesting is in that process, by changing my environment, by putting myself in a place where I had to reflect on what had happened, then making a decision that I am going to move forward and I'm going to grow through this. I did what I did as a kid when I was playing music, and I was like, okay, I want to get better. Go find a teacher, go find a coach. One of my taglines is coaching and mentoring is like being on the HOV lane. If you don't know what the HOV lane is, if you're listening, it's in America or in most countries, you have a lane dedicated in the highway that if you have 2 or more people, you can get into that lane and go as fast as you want, or at least go the speed limit while everybody else is sitting in traffic. And if you think about it, a lot of us in life, we go through life sitting in traffic, pressing on the gas, people are cutting us off. We're angry. We're frustrated. We're wasting resources, where if we had a really good mentor or coach for that area of our life, it's like being in a car with someone else and we get access to this high occupancy vehicle lane. And we can go 60, 70 miles an hour where everybody else is going 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. and they're stuck in traffic, taking 2 hours to get home. We get there in 15 minutes. That can happen in our lives based on finding the right coach, someone who's been there, done that, and has proven methods and process and can coach you or mentor you through how to do that. And that's what I did. I did that with neuroscience. So I got a certification in neuroscience. I did that with whole brain learning with a gentleman named Dr. Shealy, where I learned how to photo read. I learned how to process information really quickly using my whole brain. I learned how to write in such a way that allowed me to, the way copywriters write. So I learned how to write more persuasively. So I went and started studying all the disciplines with other people who are experts, not just, someone who's trying to sell me something, but someone who has a proven track record and an expert. And it catapulted my life in a way that I could not have done if I was sitting in the car trying to do it myself.
Yeah, understood. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, there are many here who may be working for an organization who feel they're not productive, but also entrepreneurs, individuals, digital nomads who also are going through or recognizing some of the things that you've said. And one of those key ingredients, it sounds like, is having that co-driver, having that help, that other voice that helps you. What are some of the other ingredients that support that, Gerald, and help you sort of supercharge your new productivity?
Yeah, for me, again, it started with the mentoring and coaching and finding the right people. Also, remain curious. Remain curious. When something doesn't work, ask why and give your brain time to process it. Because one of the biggest things I learned was that transformational change starts with transformational learning. That if you want to transform your life, you have to learn how to take in information that's going to be transformational, because the thinking that got you where you are, it's not going to be the same level of thinking that's going to take you to this next stage in your life. You're going to have to grow in your learning. And many times we don't know, well, where do you go? What books do you read? Who do you talk to? And that's where a great mentor who's actually accomplished that. And a mentor may be someone who they've written a book. You may not be able to talk to them directly, but they've written a book, they have a program or so on. And through that process, for me, what I decided and what I learned was the value of yoga. I had never done yoga in my life. But every morning I get up and I spend 15 minutes on the floor on a mat in my home gym, and I listen to meditative music and I stretch. And my goal is to process stress out of my body. Just like if you're in a shower and the rag that you're just washed up with is soaking with water, that's like the end of our day or the beginning of our day, where our bodies are just soaked with stress. And by stretching and doing yoga and doing certain positions, we're able to stretch out and kind of wring out that stress out of our cells, out of our flesh, out of our body, so that we're less stressed out. Our spines also carry a lot of stress. That's why if you've had a long, hard day, you have a lot of pain in the back of your neck, because our bodies are producing cortisol and adrenaline, and it's actually creating tension. And that's where a lot of spinal issues come up. And so it was amazing how, in learning from people who knew so much more than I did about this stuff, that came up. As I was going through the vestibular program, I learned about kinesiology. I learned about the physiology of the body. I learned about something around brain gyms, how small movements that we do with our bodies can actually rewire our brains. I learned about meditation, sitting quietly for 10, 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day or even an hour a day and just meditating. But to really get the advantage of it, we have to be de-stressed as much as possible. But by having a regular practice of meditation, I can begin to start hearing that intuitive voice of, here's some great ideas. Here's something else you should try. Here's something else you should do. And my background in technology and so on is in project management and project portfolio management, which is selecting the right projects while optimizing the cost to get the project done. And so I use that concept in my own life. I create a to-do list every day, and the things that go on that list are what's important now and what are the things that are going to move me forward in my goals. on a daily basis. Another thing I do is I write out my goals as affirmations on a daily basis. And you may think, well, how much time do you spend? I spend, because I work from home, I have 2 companies and so on, I spend a couple hours. But you could do this in 10 minutes or 30 minutes. You can start small. But if you and here's the reason why I write out my goals by hand, is that when writing out your goals by hand, you're programming your reticular activating system. You're programming your brain. Your cells, your brain cells begin to change and adjust. And your brain begins to think through and visualize what you're writing down in a way that your body says, oh, he's living this now. And you start attracting the resources, the people, the books, the materials that you need to accomplish your goals by doing that. And so writing out your goals, yoga, meditation, visualization, having great coaches and mentors. And by doing that, you're going to come up with some amazing ideas of things that, how you can open the door or move things forward in a way that you weren't able to do before. And that's what happened in my life.
So I've been making notes furiously. What a great learning podcast this is for me. Never mind anybody tuning in. It's fantastic. And I've written down as a summary of everything that you've sort of talked about there that the secret, one of the secrets appears to be slowing down to speed up in productivity terms. Was that resonate?
Yes, it does. Because a lot of times we think that by just moving fast and moving fast and moving fast and moving fast that we're going to make progress, and that is not the case. The case is you got to slow down and you got to make sure that you're making the right moves, the right steps. You're selecting the right activities. Not every activity has the same weight. If you spend your day doing something that is trivial, you've just wasted time, because you could have gotten something done in less time that was going to add more value. And so I always look and go, what's the thing that's going to add the greatest value to my business, to my life? And again, balance it. One of the best books I've ever read, I read back in 1992, and that was Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits. And one of the reasons that was one of the best books is because, I don't know if you experienced this, but I before I read that book, I would go through my week and I'd have a great activity around business or this area or that area. But then there's other 7 areas of my life that I didn't touch. The kids felt like, well, Dad, you weren't really with me. Or my wife said, oh, honey, you missed the dinner because you had to work later. And so I realized that I needed to categorize my life into, what roles I play, and then identified what were the things I needed to do in each of those roles to move the ball forward, and select 1 or 2 things, put them on my calendar, and walk around the bases of my life and touch every base, doing something that's going to move the ball forward. That one exercise alone transformed my productivity.
Yeah, I can see that. And I started my career in Procter and Gamble, and I couldn't even walk through the door without doing Covey's 7 Habits. And I understand why now. But you also are pioneering in this space, and productivity and doing these things are all very well. And then there is a big so what question, and the measures behind it really will make a difference. And I know that at your Leonard Productivity Intelligence Institute, which you founded and you lead, you put a lot of science behind this to champion the data that comes through that to prove and measure productivity. Could you explain more?
Yeah, because I believe that if you have the science and the core reasoning why this actually works, you're able to understand it better, and you're able to, for yourself, develop that growth mindset. Because to develop grit, Angela Duckworth talks a lot about being gritty and developing grit. And one of the things she says in her talk is that grit comes from a growth mindset, but a growth mindset comes from understanding the fact that our brains are is like neuroplasticity. Our brains are malleable. Even in old age, we can still grow new brain cells. We can still develop. If I understand that scientific fact, then I realized that I have the ability to have a growth mindset, which then I start pursuing that and growing my brain, growing my mind, and it enhances me to become gritty. And so a big part of the productivity intelligence and making sure that every article has science and research-based content in it is right brain, left brain. I want people who are left brain to go, wow, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of scientific facts. This is based on peer-reviewed content. And people who are right brain to go, here's the big vision, here's where I'm going. And if they happen to be both, that's even better, because they go, okay, got it. I get the big picture of where this is going, but now I also have the detailed facts around it. And that's the way I actually operate. If I write something or if I get into something, I want to understand the science behind it. Why does that work? You know, why when I write something down, I remember it better than when somebody just tells it to me. There's a scientific fact behind that. Why is it that, you know, we have hunches? Well, that's a scientific fact that we do have a non-conscious brain that sees and takes in more information than our conscious mind can ever have, and it communicates to it and we can tap into it if we know how to. And so I look at adding the science into things, my writing, in my books, in my consulting, and everything that I do, because I know that that gives people the foundation to say, hey, this is based on true facts. This is real. I can rely on this content.
Well, I totally get that, but I am going to put you on the spot now, Gerald. I'd love to have some examples from organizations or leaders that you've worked with who are now getting this right, what they're doing differently, and the benefits that are coming out of it from a measurement point of view.
Exactly. So one of my clients is the Virginia Department of Transportation. I've been with them now 10 years. When they brought me on, I was a subject matter expert in an enterprise project management tool, and they had a homegrown tool that they had built. And one of the problems with this tool was if you change dates on any of the schedules, the dates didn't ripple out and the new data didn't flush into the old system, to the systems that the accounting team could manage. And they were dealing with 14,000 projects, and they had a 6-year program budget of about $16 billion. That's a massive problem. So leveraging some of these concepts that I'm talking about, I had a team of 3 developers, and we got to work on this problem. We introduced a new solution that connected to the old solution, tied the two together, made sure that the two systems could talk to each other. Long story short, we were able to implement a process where now the schedules or the data was set up in systems that were automated, that were connected, and worked dynamically. And we also wrote a lot of code and took pretty much all the things that they were doing manually and automated them. And so we only gave them a few things to do. So it gave them back their life. So they were, instead of doing all these little minor things that didn't really matter, they were able to focus on things that really did matter. We were able to increase their getting a project up and running and process time by 40%. They're now number 1 in the country here in the United States when it comes to road construction scheduling. They're able to get more projects done because now they have an automated process. And one of the things that, again, around productivity, it was also not just the technology or the software or the coding. It was also, how did you roll this out so that 1,000 project managers across the state could actually adopt this process? And I go back to being a musician. As a musician, when you play a concert, the people in the front row, to me, are like the people who come to the meetings, right? When you're in business, you have a business meeting, and people, the ones who come to the business meeting, they're in the front row with you. They're talking to you, but there are also people who are coming to the show who are being affected by the process, and they're in the back of the room. They're in the balcony. They're in the back. Well, if from a musical standpoint, those people paid for those seats as well. So you want to perform or have the stadium set up so that everyone can hear and be a part of the show and have the experience. And so I always think the same way when it comes to business. Even though these people are not in the room with me, they still are paying and coming to the show. So how do I make sure that they're engaged and they're involved? So by creating processes or creating documents or creating communications that gets everyone involved and teaches them the benefit to themselves, not the benefit to the company. Because people are only going to move because there's a benefit for them personally. And if they know, hey, if I adopt this new system and I accept this process, I'm going to go to my son's ball game where I usually have to stay home and work. Or I'm going to get to go on vacation when I usually have to cancel my vacation because I'm so inundated with work. Now they've made my job easier so I can actually get some of my life back. They're going to buy in. And so by doing things like that to get them to buy in, you create a process where, one, we're automating things. We got people in the front row engaged, but we also got people in the audience, or people who are in the districts who are not at headquarters getting engaged and wanting to be a part of the process, and wanting to be engaged, wanting to be a champion of the process. Then you create buy-in, and by creating these centers of excellence around the state, it's like a word of mouth. People realize, hey, I'm on this new system and I'm getting all my work done and I have free time now. The other guy's going to go, okay, who do I talk to get on that system? Right. And so those are the kinds of things that can be done leveraging this holistic process. And again, it's not about running faster and doing more. It's about doing the right things and also learning how to engage people and engage the workforce in a way that they see the value in it for themselves and they buy into it, and now they want it more than you forcing it on them.
Yeah, it's doing smart, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. And in fact, I have to go back to it. Never mind Virginia, Gerald, but the UK government could do with some road construction scheduling, I can tell you. So I'm going to be making sure that I send this out there to someone so they take a listen. They need a bit of that, but because that's an astonishing measurement, 40% process time improvement, and no wonder they're number one. And no wonder, and I love the music analogy, no wonder those in the districts are kind of saying, we want a piece of this, we want a little bit of this. And maybe just one small additional question here. I'm very interested then to hear how it feels kind of emotionally, or as humans in the business, when businesses or organizations are getting this right and working smart.
Well, what it feels like is like playing in a band. It feels like you're in a groove. You go to meetings and the tension and stress that is normally a part of something this large, where you have those kind of dollars being thrown around and things are not going the way they're supposed to go, that creates a lot of anxiety, that creates a lot of stress, right? And so everyone's brain in that situation is producing cortisol and adrenaline. And so their necks are getting tight. They're more on the defensive. They're skeptical. They're pushing back. They are thinking from the back of their brain. They're thinking from the amygdala, right? And so when you have a place where people are now engaged and they are seeing the benefit, they are seeing the progress, they're seeing the quick wins, they're seeing things happen. The citizens are seeing roads getting done faster. They're being more informed about what's going on. The people who are doing the work, whether it's the construction crews or the project managers who are overseeing those construction crews, have better systems. There's visibility. That automatically gets them to think, either they get into a wait and see, like, okay, I'm a little skeptical here, but I'm in a wait and see mode. So that's thinking from the top of the brain, where now I'm kind of in a process of, I'm not resistant, but I'm just kind of waiting and see. And that's fine. But you also get those who now are like, hey, we can make this better. We can experiment, or they become co-creators with you in the process. And that's you're working now from the front of the brain, and the brain is producing oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, GABA, all of these positive neurochemicals. And they walk away from the meeting going, man, that was a great meeting. And they're smiling and they're engaged. And so now it's like, hey, let's go have a cup of coffee. Let's go out. Let's take the team out for dinner. You start having those things that start happening naturally, as if you're in a family that is like not dysfunctional, but functional. You're in a functional working environment and functional family. It's like think about it this way. If you go to a concert and the band is there and they're on stage and they're excellent musicians, but they all just had a major argument and they don't like each other. Is that going to be a concert where you're watching these guys supposedly playing really good music? They can't even look at each other. They can't smile with each other. They can't engage with each other. That is going to be like, okay, you played the right notes, but something's wrong. But why do we go to concerts and fall in love with the music because the band is engaged. The musicians are looking at each other. They're smiling. The artists are so on. And so guess what? Everybody in the audience is doing it. And everybody's brain is going, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. It's just pushing off. And you walk away going, that was the best concert ever. I had a great time. Why? Because all of those emotions are nothing but neurochemicals. And so you actually can, as a business leader, as a professional who's leading a team, do activities and things to help facilitate the positive neurochemicals more than the negative neurochemicals. Here's an example. On this particular program and project that I'm talking about, a few years into it, we had a big changeover. I'd say probably about 5 or 6 years into it, we had a big changeover of staff, of people who came on the team. Some people were just given to us. They didn't understand the project. Some of them had skeptical ideas and so on. And I could see what was going on. I could see the writing on the wall. So I said, okay, we're going to have a meeting. I need you all to leave your laptops and just come to the meeting. And this was before COVID. So we're all kind of co-located, coming together as a meeting. And I said, okay, everybody's grab some sticky notes off the table. And I want you to write down 7 or 8 attributes of a team that you were on where you had so much fun. You loved that team. You hated the fact that it broke up. Now I want you to spend, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, spend time thinking about it quietly, write down some words that describe that team. So we did. Had quiet time, no music, nothing, just everybody's quietly writing down. Then we started. I said, okay, we got a whiteboard. I just started picking different people, especially I'll pick the quiet ones and say, hey, can you take it and put up your, what you wrote down? And let's say a lady gets up and she says integrity, it was fun, we all worked hard. And so they put it on different areas. So I get the next person, and guess what? It was fun. We worked hard. It was integrity. We did this and we did that. And maybe he has 1 or 2 that may be outliers. But if they had the same word, they had to put it on top of each other. So in other words, we're visually creating an infinity diagram of similar words and where everybody's at as far as the values of what they valued from those teams. Throughout the exercise, people are now beginning to realize, even though we thought we had a lot that was not common, we actually have a lot that is in common. We actually want the same thing. We actually value the same thing. So guess what starts happening unbeknownst to them? Their brains begin to produce, instead of adrenaline and cortisol, their brains begin to produce oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, because they're seeing people around them who value the same things that they see. If you're in a group and people value the things that you value, it's going to become a natural infinity group that you want to be a part of. And we talked about the things that were outliers, and we just asked, why was that important to you? Why was that? And then we decided, let's pick 7 of these that are going to be the core values of our team. By the time we were done, we had the best team because now everyone is engaged and everyone's brain is working together. And it wasn't, let's sit and work out this problem. And I think that's where a lot of times we make mistakes. We sit in a room and go, okay, the team's not working well together. What's the problem? Well, so you're starting the conversation with what's the problem? That's the problem, is where you're starting it. What you should do is focus on where you want to go. And one of the ways to do that is to focus on get people to focus on what did they do in the past that was so great with other teams. As they're writing it out, their brains are remembering the positive relationships. And so again, you already starting that process of getting their brains to produce these positive neurochemicals. So by the time they get to the exercise and get through the exercise, everyone's brain is now on the positive side and not the negative side. And so you have a change in physiology of the team as well.
Well, I've had a change in physiology. I'm having fun. I'm learning hard. I'm engaged. And I really buy into that starting positive. So it's not what the problem is what's the opportunity here? What do we all value from those previous teams? How can we recreate that here? And what's our joint responsibility in there? And I'm guessing that many like me who are tuning into this right now are in the point, right, where do I get started? I'm absolutely sure there are many out there that will want to get in touch. I'm going to ask you for that in a second. But as we draw to a close,
sure.
Could you give us, Gerald, 5 points to help those tuning in supercharge their progress in this area from a productivity or personal productivity or team productivity perspective, that then impacts themselves, others, and ultimately the organization?
Exactly. So for yourself, if you're working on your own productivity, I would say really should do it nightly before you go to bed. And here's why. You should write out, whether you do it on a sticky note or in an organizer, it really doesn't matter. As long as you have a consistent place that you can do this, is to write out the 3 to 4 to 5 things that are critical for you to move things forward to get done. You want to make sure you don't pack your schedule. Number 2, make sure you didn't pack your schedule so that you're just going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, because that's not productive. You're just going to burn out. This science has proven that when you go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, you're wearing your brain out. And pretty soon, by the time you get to the third meeting, you're no good. You should go to a meeting, have a break between meetings, a 30-minute, 15-minute break before you go to the next meeting. Give your brain time to settle down. Our conscious brains only have so much capacity. So first thing, develop your goal, your list of activities for the day to move the ball forward. Make sure that your schedule has breathing room so that your conscious mind can breathe. When you do have your own work to do, practice what I call the Pomodoro technique. That is, work in 25-minute segments where you have uninterrupted focus time to get something done, and then take a break for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, do something totally different than what you were doing. Take a walk, go get a cup of coffee, go talk to someone else, and then come back and do another Pomodoro, another 25-minute sprint. That'll make you much more productive, and especially if you're focused on those 3 to 4 to 5 things that you have set there. Make sure you have time for yourself for meditation and yoga. Even if it's a 3-minute break in the middle of the day, you simply close your eyes, put your hand over your heart, and breathe from your heart and think positive, appreciative thoughts. That'll change your physiology. That'll get your brain and your heart connecting together. That'll get your body in coherence. It's kind of based on the science of heart math. It gets your body and your heart. Just that little break in the middle of the day will supercharge you. And then when it comes to your team, how do you get your team, if you're beginning to see your team in a funk and people are not, don't go and tell them that they're in a funk. Don't go and tell them we're gonna get everybody doing something positive. Just do it. If you notice, when I talked about the rules of engagement, that's what I call it. It's called Rules of Engagement, and it was developed by Judith Glaser in the book Conversational Intelligence. And again, that's one of the folks that was my mentor, that I got certified in neuroscience and the conversational intelligence. The magic behind that activity is you don't tell people what to think. You let them remember the positivity, which then automatically begins to get the positive neurochemicals coming. And then as you walk through the exercise without talking about what you're doing, everyone's brain gets in that groove and on that positive side. So those are 5 things that I would say that would radically transform just, your day and things that you can do there. And obviously I have some freebies on my website that you can check out as well. And if you want to have a call with me, you can do that as well.
Well, such value here. And some of these I recognize from my own sort of peaks and troughs of being productive and unproductive, riding down those 3 to 5 critical areas where I can move forward or make progress and take one step at a time from my own perspective, my own experience.
Right.
Giving your brain a break is such a good piece of advice. And make sure that you're giving your schedule a break as well. It's not meeting after meeting after meeting. The Pomodoro technique came in very handy for me, actually, when we were all behind our computers during COVID and the pandemic. Yeah. And that kind of 2 hours deep work split into those 25-minute segments and short breaks really helped. And it helped my productivity to the extent that I was able to build time into my diary during the working day to go to the gym or go for a walk. And these are habits that I've kept since then. And that resonated very, very strongly there. And a lot of it goes back to your last point there, Gerald, which is we have to just do these things. The more we think about it and just talk about it, we're not going to get anywhere. It's actions over words.
Exactly.
And you mentioned you've got some other tips and so on. I know that many listening or watching will want to continue the discussion. How do they find out more and how do they get in touch?
So they can go to the website productivityintelligenceinstitute.com/rethink. So if they go to /rethink, that'll take them to a dedicated page for the listeners. And on that page, I have 3 icons or images. And one is for a weekly evaluation worksheet. Another one is for a handbook that teaches you the 6 critical elements of project management that I've learned over my 25 years, that out of all the projects I've done, these 6 things have to be a part of your project, because now every goal that you're going after more likely has multiple steps. So it's a project. And guess what? You're a project manager. You're a project manager of your own goals. And so if you have these critical elements, they will help you. And then if you want to book a call with me to learn more about some of the things that I offer, there's a link. There's an image where you can click on. There's a link to it, and you can jump on my schedule for a free 30-minute conversation.
Well, this has been a thought and action provoking episode, and I'm sure many tuning in will agree with me on that. Gerald J. Leonard, thank you very much for joining me, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.